Welcome to OTR Debate, our off-the-record podcast where three lawyers debate all things while managing to find out how it all comes back to the law. I'm Mucci, and I work in immigration, and I'm here with Wee.
Hi, I'm Wee. I do contracts.
And Lando.
I'm Lando. I'm a prosecutor.
And today we are discussing, Tim and Eric, but not the Tim and Eric you might be thinking of. In fact...
Which one are you thinking of?
Well, the Tim and Eric Awesome Show. Great job.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. But similarly, we'll be discussing probably two titans of alternative comedy. It's very similar kind of Adult Swim-esque humor.
I can't think of Tim Robinson as a titan of anything.
So Tim Robinson, yes, and Eric Andre was who we'll be discussing. And so you have Tim and you have Eric. As always, the format will be opening statements, followed by some questions by me, and then a closing argument, and then I'll come to a verdict. Sound good?
That sounds great.
Sounds good.
Just like always.
Yeah, like always.
Yeah.
And who wants to start?
I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
Your Honor, Tim Robinson. No one's funnier. No one's funny. You're looking. And the man's got comedic timing. He's got the word choice to just make you laugh. Right, so the way he chooses his words and his jokes and his skits and sketches, they just don't make sense, but at the same time, they make so much sense, and they just get me. Mm-hmm. They're rewatchable, they're quotable, and of course I'm talking about I Think You Should Leave. That's his main hit and his newest project, but the man is a genius, and so that's why I think he's way better than Eric Andre.
All right. What do you have to say to that?
I think the word I'm looking for with Eric Andre is brave. He is not afraid to make the weirdest shit you've ever seen and make it funny. His big break into the comedy scene was with his show, the Eric Andre Show. And after its first season, it was described as possibly the weirdest and most engrossing 10 minutes on contemporary television. And I completely agree with that. It is weird, but it is funny. And it is unscripted for a lot of it. But we can get into that later.
Okay. Well,
It's being weird for the sake of being weird. It's like the shock value kind of thing.
Let's get into it later.
Okay. So let's start at the beginning. Where did your comedian get started, and what were their early attempts at kind of breaking into the scene, and then their big break?
Okay.
Sure. You want me to go?
I could go.
Okay.
I could go. Tim Robinson got he did his start doing improv at Second City in Detroit in the 2000s. Where he's from, he started teaching improv and eventually met Sam Richardson, who you know, Mucci, and many people know as the Baby of the Year guy from I Think You Should Leave. He's the one he's like the host trying to protect Harvey Jarvis. You know,
yeah, right.
She's trying to get Harvey Jarvis. He's also in the Friday night song singing. Tim Robinson eventually made his way to Chicago in the late 2010s, did a project called Southside Heaven, critically acclaimed, well-received, led him to a show on CBS, never aired. He was on SNL 2013 to 2014. After that, he was on Seth Meyers. 2016 and on, he started doing projects for Netflix. Originally, a show called The Characters, where essentially it's 8 comedians, one for each episode, and they kind of do their own thing. And it seems like it kind of gives the ground for I Think You Should Leave, in that they're all not related. They all kind of have different characters and different people that are in each episode. And he was actually also on Michael Bolton's Big Sexy Valentine's Day special. That's with Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island Boys.
Directed by Scott Aukerman?
Yeah, which was great. And then he started up I Think You Should Leave, and the rest was history, as they say.
Mm-hmm. And wait, did you mention Detroiters in there?
I think I did, didn't I?
Good.
Well, if I didn't,
so.
He did that, and you know more about that than I do.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
So Eric Andre started doing his comedy career with stand-up in 2003. he was also doing some side gigs, such as the live version of the Geico cavemen. So he would go to different events and make money that way. But it wasn't really until his show, the Eric Andre Show, started airing in 2012. And the backstory to that was he had this vision of a really crazy visual, absurdist humor show. He rented out a semi-abandoned, semi-illegal bodega, and that's in Brooklyn. And this is his words from an interview. And it was all like shot by him and his group of friends. They shot in there for a few days. They shot some man on the street stuff, and then he ran out of money. So this is all self-funded. And he was paying for it out of pocket. He didn't have enough money to hire an editor, so it was just kind of like a weird mess of just footage that they had. And he taught himself Final Cut. He put it together and sent it to a bunch of networks. And basically they all thought that it sucked, except for Adult Swim. And they...
I see the stuff on there.
Yeah, they loved it. And so they were like, here's $300, make 10 episodes. And yeah, I mean, from there it's been history.
Okay.
So that started airing in 2012, and it's a parody of public access talk shows. So he does have like an interview section where he interviews celebrities or celebrity lookalikes. He does have those man on the street segments that feature like pranks and shock humor, like Lando said earlier, different things like that. And since then, he's co-starred on some sitcoms on like ABC, like Don't Trust the Bee and Apartment 23. He's also been in Two Broke Girls. He's made movies for Netflix like Bad Trip, and has gotten involved with like the Jackass series of movies too. And my personal favorite is a show on Netflix called Disenchantment, which is an animated series, and he voices one of the main characters on there.
It's like kind of like Big Mouth, right? Or no?
It's the same artist from The Simpsons, the creator of The Simpsons and Futurama. So it looks more like Futurama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's Eric Andre. The meme where he's like shooting someone on the chair. Was that from the Eric Andre show?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know the backstory of that or no?
I do. And actually, thanks for foreshadowing that, because that'll come up in just a minute.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about memes. Let's talk about... both these shows, I think, have been pretty memeified extensively, or have like internet GIFs of them and everything. So what's your favorite meme or reaction GIF, or I mean a couple favorites from your show or from your comedian?
Well, I think since Lando just brought that up, that is actually one of my favorite memes of the show. Just so versatile.
It's the only one I know.
So it's often called Who Killed Hannibal, because on the Eric Andre Show, his sidekick kind of person is Hannibal Buress.
Oh my God. I hate that guy.
Well, good thing he got shot, because that's the meme.
You guys have heard about my run-ins with him, right?
Yeah.
I think
In Chicago? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that. We just don't... We have a
You've met him a couple times.
I passed, and it's not a good one. I'm not a fan of his.
Well, the history, since you asked earlier, it comes from season 2, episode 6 of his show, which is from 2013. He's basically doing a stand-up segment, he being Eric Andre. He's making a joke about climate change, and then suddenly he just turns around and shoots Hannibal Buress several times. And then he reloads the weapon, and then he shoots several more. And then on the screen it says, "Who killed Hannibal?" So like I mentioned, it's that's the name of the meme. It's also sometimes referred to as Eric Andre shooting Hannibal Buress, or why would X or blank do this? Because that's kind of the overall theme, and that's how it's used as a meme. A popular one that kind of was early on was George Bush shooting at the Twin Towers, and why would Al Qaeda do this? And it's used often, in a political sense, and kind of like the leopards ate my face sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I also see all the time how can you say something so controversial yet so brave?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's why he's so brave.
Yeah, there you go.
Mucci. So Tim Robinson and his show, I Think You Should Leave, this is their thing. Like, this is why he's a genius. Everything about this show is quotable. Everything about this show is memeable. I'm not the only one that appreciates his humor and appreciates his sketches. In 2022, he won a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Actor in a Short Form Comedy or Drama Series. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's Tim Robinson doing that. Yeah, he's all throughout social media. Whenever a new season of I Think You Should Leave comes out, it takes over in meme format, in videos. There's the "You sure about that?" guy. Like, you sure about that?
Sure about that's not why.
There's I don't know what any of this shit is, and I'm scared. Where he's in the car and he doesn't know how to drive. There's Ruben. What's his last name?
Rabasa.
Yeah, Rabasa. Oh my God, he admitted. Which he's just hilarious. He's one of my favorite guys on there. So, and if people haven't seen it, and if you're only exposed to I Think You Should Leave, there is like a YouTube clip of Ruben Rabasa explaining like the backstory of the sketch that the only sketch that he was in, mm-hmm. where he's like a part of a focus group. He like just kind of goes through what happened behind the scenes, and that he got cut by the chair and calls the chair company, and he's like, why the fuck would this chair company, like, it cut me? And they're asking him, is it bad? And he's like, yeah, for a chair it's pretty fucking bad. For a chair. The guy he's on the phone with is the CEO. He like hates his fucking life. He's just hilarious. But the whole show is just incredibly memeable, incredibly quotable. So that's like its thing.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I think, there is almost a similar kind of meme to the type that we mentioned about, shooting Hannibal. Who would do this, basically, or why would someone do it? There's a I Think You Should Leave meme with the guy in the hot dog suit. Like, we're all trying to find the guy who did this. Yeah. Which I think was also used for a lot of, like, political, reaction.
Yeah.
And I think with the Eric Andre show being a little bit older, being like... the meme format of our college years, maybe, or early law school, with it more being just stationary, or like, with the all caps letters. Yeah. Not irrelevant, but it was the meme format of the time.
Okay.
Which was the style at the time.
Right. Whereas from I Think You Should Leave is more used as clips on Reels or TikToks. So a lot of people are exposed to it that way, instead of like 9gag or something like that.
All right. Well, then before we get to our final question, I just want to remind everyone to do us a quick favor and subscribe here on YouTube or wherever you're listening in your podcast app. Also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and leave us a review, leave us a comment. We'd love that. You can leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, things like that too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We would love that.
We would love that. We love you. So, so the last question before we get to closings, is there a particular sketch or episode or bit that portrays or is related to the law? Because we always like to go back to the law in these episodes. And how is it a good illustration of the type of comedy of the show?
Okay, I could start on this one because it's one of my favorite sketches on I Think You Should Leave. Courtroom sketch that has nothing to do with the courtroom, essentially. Season 2, episode 3, called Brian's Hat. All right. So the scene is Tim Robinson is sitting in the benches of a courtroom. He's watching a trial go down where two of his fellow coworkers are on trial for insider trading. Someone's asking one of his coworkers that's accused, asking them questions, and then starts to go into text messages that were exchanged between her and another person, the other coworker. And these text exchange are essentially just tearing up Tim Robinson's character in that he's wearing the
stupid hat he's wearing.
He's wearing the goofiest fucking hat that anybody's ever seen, and it just roasting him. So I just wanted to point out, for viewers, listeners that have seen that episode, that's not how court works. You can't just randomly talk about everything and then, just expect it to all come into evidence. And then one of the attorneys does object to relevance, and Tim Robinson's like, finally. but
Like
it's
way
like
too late,
yeah, it's
too.
like way late. You know, she's talking about the hat for like fucking 10 minutes, and then she's like,
Dollar sign emoji.
right. So that is one of my favorite episodes. It's just this whole thing about this ridiculous hat and these coworkers making fun of his ridiculous hat, and he's defending it to the death because he's never stood up for anything in his life, and he's gonna stand up for that fucking hat. It's just you know, most of it's hearsay, most of it's irrelevant, all of it's funny.
Yeah. Fair.
All right. Well, I will talk about one of my favorite clips of the entire shit show.
Entire shit show.
Yeah. Yes, that was a misspoken word, but it's also a pretty good description of it. But it is one of the segments where Eric takes it to the streets. And, you know, these are unscripted again, kind of just with random people.
Just like this.
Yep.
Yeah, like this, but not like I Think You Should Leave, because those are definitely scripted. But anyway, Eric Andre comes up to a street vendor who's selling wigs. And he sits down at the table. He's making jokes with the guy, like, oh, let me try this wig on. So he tries it on. He's like, oh, I'll do the whole thing. He puts on lipstick as well. And he's sitting at the chair with his back facing the street. This is on the sidewalk. And then this cop comes and says, have you seen this man? And he's holding a wanted, you know, picture with Eric Andre on there. And Eric Andre is just looking at the vendor saying, don't you say a fucking word. And, you know, the vendor is kind of scared because he's like wanted for murder. He's like, hey, can I get your wig back? To try to expose him to the cop. And then the next thing you know, this security guard comes and also is holding a wanted flyer and says, have you seen this man? He's wanted for impersonating a police officer. And so the police officer person is looking at the vendor and says, don't you say a fucking word. And then the three of them, Eric Andre, the police officer, and the security guard, kind of start chanting and circling the vendor saying, don't you say a fucking word, don't you say a fucking word. And the vendor's just standing there very confused, like, what the fuck's happening? And it's ridiculous in a good way, and it's hilarious every time I watch it. It's available on YouTube. You can see the clip if you just search for the Eric Andre wig or something like that. It's so funny, and I do think that is emblematic of the show in terms of just how absurd it is. And, you know, it's not necessarily tied to legal.
I was just about to ask that. Is the legal part of it is that there was a police officer?
Exactly.
And he was wanted for murder.
Yeah. Okay.
Was wanted for murder, impersonating a police officer.
Okay. Several charges. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a short clip, and it ends before any formal charges are pressed. So you don't get to see that.
Something needed to happen.
But yeah, so, you know, that is my tie into the law.
Okay.
Something tells me that I found Wee's rendition of it way funnier than
You would actually watch it?
Yeah, I think I would watch it.
I'll show it to you
funny.
after this.
Okay.
And I think you'll both enjoy it a lot.
All right, so let's do a very brief closing, and then we'll get to a verdict. Who
Okay.
wants to start?
I can start. It's mine, Your Honor, is a very short closing. I love Tim Robinson because he's really funny. I love Nathan Fielder because he's really funny. I really hope they team up someday. And that's not to say anything about Tim Robinson and everything, because I think You Should Leave says it all, but I really want them to team up.
All right.
Yeah, and to that, you know, I also love Nathan Fielder as well. But his comedy is actually more similar to Eric Andre's in the sense that it's an unscripted show for the most part, and you get these real reactions from people. And I think that's really the type of humor you have to be into to really appreciate Eric Andre. It's just so absurd and so out there. And I think with Eric Andre really doing this as a homegrown project, self-funding at first and not having the backing of Netflix or any large studio, you know, really shows his persistence and his bravery as a comedian.
Oh, it comes full circle. That's why he's brave.
Yeah, just like a circle, as if three people were chanting, "Don't you say a fucking word."
All right.
Okay.
All right. So with that, yes, I'll come to my verdict. Yeah, I appreciate Eric Andre, but I've never been able to like really sit down and watch a lot of his show. I have like started it before and just gone like, oh, it just kind of slips my mind. I don't get back to it. But I think You Should Leave is like a day one. As soon as the season drops, I'm like watching the whole thing and probably watching it twice that day. And then the endless quotes and all that stuff. So that's great. And then also Detroiters was not mentioned too much, but I watched that during 2020, like during the pandemic, and at that time I was like, this is better than I Think You Should Leave. Even I thought it was really funny. So totally recommend that too if you like I Think You Should Leave and like Tim Robinson like I do. So I think Lando wins this one today.
Okay. And I didn't mention one of my favorite sketches in I Think You Should Leave, Detective Crashmore. The Santa Claus not wanting to be, tied to Christmas because he doesn't do it, or he doesn't want to be mentioned as, doing Christmas, and
He wants to be an actor.
He wants to be a professional actor, getting paid the $2 million, even if he does a bad job. I won. I don't know why I'm still justifying this. Okay,
it's funny. I agree. It's funny. All right. So thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you later.
Thanks.
Bye.